Welcome to the Cybersecurity Competition Federation show. I'm Dan Manson. I teach computer information systems at Cal Poly Pomona and serve as a principal investigator for a National Science Foundation grant to help form an umbrella organization over cybersecurity competitions. The Cybersecurity Competition Federation can support the development of skill at a large scale by bringing cybersecurity competitions under an umbrella organization, which will help players of all ages and skill levels identify a point of entry into a continuum of cybersecurity competition experiences. With a focus on communication and promotion, the CCF maintains the autonomy of competition creators, supports their business models, and does not interfere with their sponsorship or funding sources. This week, we will discuss cybersecurity competitions from the student's view. In our first show, I mentioned that those who participate in cyber competitions are a combination of cyber athletes and rock stars with a much higher chance of going pro. Joining me today is Joe Needlman. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Joe is a 2012 graduate of Canyon High School. Joe has been a computer science student at Cal Poly Pomona since fall of 2012 and competed in the 2013 and 2014 Western Regional Collegiate Cyber Defense competitions. And Joe, you're competing again in WRCCDC this year.
Yes I am.
Let's take a look at some pictures of WRCCDC and you participating. What has that competition been like for you? What has it done for you?
A lot of standing, as you can see. But seriously, CCDC is a great competition to just learn a lot of different topics. You're put into a scenario where your network's completely broken and nothing really works. The great thing about that, though, is you're trying to understand what's going to be broken and what can possibly be done. And as a student, you don't know all that. And so when you get into competition, it's how much have you researched, how much have you worked with, and then just go at.
So what's the difference for you wanting to go into cybersecurity, being involved in the extracurricular activities such as the competitions versus a student who just takes classes?
There's a big difference. When you're playing these competitions, you become part of a little community of students that want to learn all these different topics and want to try to push themselves to do something that normally isn't covered in classes.
You've worked in the field now. You're only 2 years into your program here, but you've already had cybersecurity internships. What do the employers like about you having that competition experience?
They definitely look at it as a way to expand your skill set. They see all the different topics of information security that I've covered, and they like that because most students coming out of university don't have a variety of topics that are covered.
Are you able to say you really have the equivalent of work experience through competitions even before you start an internship?
Yeah, I'm more realistically, what I've heard is they've been interested in the fact that I've worked with so many different systems, networking appliances, and just hardware. And you can put that into direct use when you get an internship or a job.
Great. We're going to take a look at some pictures now of the CyberPatriot competition. You've been involved as a CyberPatriot mentor for a couple of years now, and one of the teams that you mentored, North Hollywood High School, took the national championship in the open division last year. That must have made you feel proud.
Yeah, it was pretty cool to see them go and win. From what I've heard, they didn't think they won, and once they heard, I think they were in shock. I think we all were in shock. Not that they weren't going to win, but it was just so unexpected.
So when you're mentoring a team, what do you like about it? Do you see yourself back at that age and you wish you could have been there and now you're able to actually develop a group before they get to college?
So when you're mentoring these students, you start when they're in middle school or freshmen in high school, and they're not very interested in information security. They're there either because their friend wanted to join or they just decided to show up one day. And by the time they're sophomore, junior, they've changed their attitude. And by the time you get to North Hollywood status, they're more interested than you are in some cases. They're pushing you to learn topics that you wouldn't even thought they want to cover. So it's a good challenge to try to keep yourself learning while teaching them.
Are you starting to see students that are in CyberPatriot, and because of that experience, that they can't wait to get to college and play in the college game?
Yeah, there are definitely quite a few students. You can hear it in their voices. They played it for so many years, and now they're going into college, and they just see opportunities to participate in these challenges.
Let's take a look at a few pictures of the Berkeley team. They're a relatively new team in the college competition. Their first year is 2013, and they were able to take the regional in 2014, their second year, which is amazing. But there are other schools out there that teach cybersecurity but haven't jumped into the college competitions, and maybe they're thinking they're not ready to play. But what would you say to schools out there that want to go down this road of having a robust cybersecurity program, a hands-on cybersecurity program, but haven't started playing in the college competitions?
So when you're playing these competitions, it's not about the winning, it's about the learning. And when you're playing CCDC or you're playing a CTF, you're learning how to do a variety of topics that aren't normally covered in your classes. And when you go and learn these, you're farther ahead than most of the students. The best opportunity is just to play and get into it.
So you want to say jump on in, the water is fine in these competitions?
It may not be fine, but it'll be a lot of fun.
Great. Let's talk a little bit now more about some of your other activities. You're an officer in the student club SWIFT. That is where the students that play in cybersecurity competitions tend to come from here at Cal Poly. What is SWIFT?
A mouthful. It stands for Students with an Interest in the Future of Technology. It's a security club that we're system administration and security. We allow students to try expand their skills. That we encourage students to try to teach other students. We also try to get students to fill gaps in their curriculum. We give students workshops and other opportunities to learn and expand.
And one of the activities that you're involved with now is building a Capture the Flag competition. Can you talk about your experience in that? You built one recently for a Cyber Girls camp. You built one for an in-house competition. What is that experience like for you?
It's very challenging. CTFs are designed to aim for a certain goal. Most of the time you hear entry level for colleges, and then you hear beginner like PICO for middle schools and high schools. And you have to build towards those audiences. And one of the challenges is when you have an audience that's beginning, you don't want to scare them away like you do with students that are interested in like the Cyber Girls camp. When you get to college, you're supposed to, or in many cases now, you're trying to challenge them to the limits of their knowledge. And so it's a big challenge to get the balance that you need.
So you have different audiences for Capture the Flags, so you really have to know who's playing, what their skill level is, and that drives what you're doing in building the competition.
Exactly, and when you get it right, people have a lot of fun, and you have them coming back again and again.
Great. Thank you, Joe, for being here today.
Thank you.
We are starting a new segment this week called Inside the Game. Joining me again is Dr. Jason Pittman, who covered CyberPatriot and CyberFed.org last week. Let's have a look. Jason, welcome back to the Cybersecurity Competition Federation show. This week we're going to talk about building competitions. You've been involved for a while now in building cybersecurity competitions, and you see potential overlaps with other professional games and esports. Can you talk about what it's like to build one of these competitions or build challenges for competitions?
Absolutely. In the beginning when we first started building cybersecurity competitions, we kind of went off, how do you build a network? How do you build a system? And that's evolved into pulling elements from game design, the actual practice of game design. And we look at things like traditional games, board games, card games, but we also really look at video games. And we take rules, different types of challenges out of those formats, and now we're more and more seeing them ported into cybersecurity competitions.
Now, some of the video games that are out today, they're very sophisticated, and they draw huge audiences when they have the events. We're still, I think, in the early stages of cybersecurity competitions, but one of the goals of the Federation is to see where we can go with things like metrics and perhaps add some learning objectives, performance objectives into these competitions. How are we going to be able to be doing that?
There's a wide array of disciplines that we can pull from that are in a very good stage of maturation. When you look at gamification, game design, and then of course the typical computer information systems courses. What we can look at is the visualization, as you mentioned, and you see that more and more in games like League of Legends, for instance. It's a prime example. Allowing the viewer to have a pulse of what's going on in the game without just watching it like a chess match.
So in the future, we might start to see competitions that can actually have an audience through much better visualization and metrics, and we might even have the equivalent of box scores and statistics like we do in sports. I expect esports is going down this road too.
Yeah, in fact, we're working on some new things for CyberFed.org after we're done with the search and the registration for the competitions that will allow you, our viewers, to not only vote, but in real time, during a competition perhaps, look at the metagame information, which is what is fun to watch as a viewer. Who's doing well, who's doing what, who's doing poorly.
Mm-hmm. It would seem that with cybersecurity competitions we have this potential because there's a lot of data generated, a lot of packets generated, log files generated, and the trick is to start turning all this data that we're collecting into information that can then be used to show performance during competitions.
Absolutely. What makes somebody good is a tough nut to crack.
But it would be really cool to get to that point where we can actually have players and we follow their performance, and that performance is used for the game, but also more than the game. It's used to, say, a high school player can go to their local college and say, this is how I performed in competitions. I want to play on the college team, and if you're in college, it's a way to go pro.
Absolutely. We can build it.
Thank you, Jason.
Very welcome, Dan. Thank you.
CyberPatriot recently announced the list of teams going to the national finals in March. Congratulations to these student cyber athletes, their coaches, and mentors. I will go out on a limb with a prediction. By 2016, championships for CyberPatriot, CCDC, CSAW, and other major cybersecurity competitions will begin to be covered as sporting events. Except many more of these athletes will play the sport in college and go pro. If you have a competition you would like us to cover in a future show, please email me at dmanson@cpp.edu. We will be back next week with another edition of the Cybersecurity Competition Federation.